if we go for excellence, we look at the competition. We look at what a person has done in order to attain that job promotion, what a person has done in order to get that far. Maybe what a person has done is in a surgery. Wow, they've done 10 surgeries more than me or whatever else. So if we can actually come to a certain point where it is that excellence is, and then realize that by the time I get to that point, be it a month's time, a year's time, 5 years' time, or I'm striving towards that, I'm trying to get more surgeries, I'm trying to improve. Well, guess what? I'm not actually the best that I can be by then. Why? Because I'm a different person, biological, physiologically, everything in 5 years' time, in a year's time. So we wrote back to the language that's being used nowadays with regard to be the best that you can be and all that. But what are you in the first place?
Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us for another interesting and insightful conversation with an amazingly impactful individual. Take a moment and think about what Goldilocks is teaching us. She's teaching us how to get life just right. And today we're going to be talking about how we can make sure our life is just right by making sure our mindset, our heart set, and our entire approach to situations, when they're shaped just right, adversity is no longer a roadblock, but adversity becomes a stepping stone and a portal to magical things and unimaginable opportunities. To join me in this conversation is somebody I just recently met, and there's no accident in life. We all meet for a reason, and I am delighted to introduce Dr. Conor Hogan into the Goldilocks community. Welcome to the Inner Goldilocks.
Thanks
Dr.
for having me, Dr. Kasturi.
As we get started, Dr. Conor, I would love for you to take a moment and talk about your adversity, because I want your story to come in your voice, and how that shaped you to become the person you are today. And then we'll dive deeper.
I think just on that and to what you just said, it's very personal to everybody. It can be money, it can be missing out on, say, career, it can be missing out on a relationship, it can be missing out on whatever. And for me, it was missing out on my world at that time. And I was 20 years of age. I was a big, tall, strong guy, 6'4", athletic, playing a lot of team sports here in my native Ireland, and had ability, had talent, and had all this energy to give and commitment. And this was my cause and my goal, my obsession, my life, and playing sport and all of that. And suddenly that was taken from me. It was like the rug was pulled from beneath my feet. And through a series of chronic pain and going to medical professionals and being told I was inoperable in Europe, I ventured into alternative health, as it was known at the time, and then complementary health, and found ways eventually, after tens of thousands of euro or dollars in US language, with regard to like all my money in my 20s, to try and get a healing, get on the flip side and just try and enjoy life a little bit, because things had gone so bad. So not only was my dream as such taken away from me, but just to be able to go forward and do other aspects of life like work, relationships, and so on. So I had to get on the even keel. And so when I did all of that, eventually, when I hit around 30 years of age, I started qualifying in all these things and discovering all the great benefits that can be given to others. And that's how I help others right now.
That is such a powerful story, but it didn't come without heartache and trying to reinvent yourself and changing the perspective of what life could be. And it's not easy for a young man to go through that. What was your support system to go through it? And what gave you the courage and the push to take this transformation? Because this is not a journey anybody does alone, right?
Well, first of all, physically, what was wrong with me was I had scoliosis, where if you look at the uh, lovely image behind me and you see the frame, that's a spine that's straight, the golden frame. But my spine was twisted like an S shape in a 3D dimension. And that affected my lungs, my vital organs, and it then incorporated stress with regard to my body. And we can get all of that ourselves through work, through relationships and other things. It's just we don't have to have an underlying condition like that. But for me, it was just, I had to do it. It was like a survival instinct. I had so much pain. When you're in pain, you just wanted to stop. You don't think 1, 5, 10 years in time. You think, I just want this to stop. If you're lying in a bed or on a therapy table and you have somebody there that can help you, you just go, wow, that's fantastic. And then if they're modest enough, they'll show you their certifications and how they did it or what they trained, or you're in conversation. So it was just a necessity. And then when you're in that kind of bad way, you swear to yourself, I'll do anything. I'll give up anything. I just want to help and help myself, help others. And then it rolls over, and then you become fascinated with the topics and the subjects, and then it's one thing after another. You realize this, and to your earlier question, it's your personal achievement, whatever's personal to you at that time. And then if you can get over that, that's the biggest hoop. And then you just go forward after that, I think.
It's interesting and insightful. You talked about pain. And life happens in the moment, right? It's not about what happened. It's not about what to expect, but life happens in the moment. And in the moment to suffer through pain, physical pain, and along with that is that emotional, psychological pain as well. So as you went through this physical journey with medical support and all of the tools and therapy and corrective surgeries, how did you deal with the emotional, psychological pain and trauma?
Well, it's interesting, yeah, and it does have that lingering effect, even decades later, to be quite honest with you, where now in my mid 40s and no manager would ever touch me in sport and go, oh God, he's too old or whatever. But I'm actually physically in a better condition. I'm more aware. I've done lots of therapies. I've gone to different trainings and so on myself. And so I know that I'm in better shape than I was when I was 20 years of age. And I dream at night, honestly, of playing these games, of just having the impact with teams and being on the field, and that never leaves you. But I think if you can refocus your energies and think of yourself at that age and what you can do and all your passion and your zest for this, and see an avenue for yourself. And for me, it was that when I was growing up, even before all of these pains and the big full stop that happened with me, I was always reading up on how to get better, how to improve physically, mentally, and so on as an athlete. And so that kind of thread kept with me. And so all the learning I've had now from physical stuff, from mental and psychological, neurological stuff, I then funnel through to help people in that way.
That is fascinating to me. And it is also a testament to the strength of your character and your ability to push through things. I'm going to pivot a little bit. And I would love for you to talk about, based on what you've gone through, how are you able to help other people deal with what they are going through and be this amazing coach and help people transform? And what about your journey is allowing you to make those authentic connections for people to want to work with you?
Yeah, I think the first part of your question there, I think it's confidence. If you go through the worst thing that you've ever gone through, and it happens very young when you're very unaware and you're uneducated and you're literally trying to do things on your own. For me, it coincided with the beginning of the internet. So it was the old dial-up connection. You're trying to get information, and it was a lot slower than now. Now we have artificial intelligence, but things are literally being put on your plate. So it was very slow. But once you get through that and you physically feel the improvements and mentally and so on, then basically you have confidence. And when you have confidence, you're not afraid to bring on somebody else with you and go, right, I can help you. I don't know if I can help you to this much, but I can certainly get the ball rolling and I'll put you in touch with somebody else who are perhaps doing something different than me if I feel that's the specific thing. But my skill set is large, so I'll only take on a client that I feel I can truly help. But with regard to what you were saying, then the second part of the question, I think it's about fear. I think we have to realize that whatever makes us fearful of some situation, we have to grasp that. And if you face that, it's like I often see this image in front of me. It's like a sprinter in the Olympics, and you have all these hurdles. And if your hurdle is the biggest one, and you can get over that or through it, we often see the sprinters that win. They just kick the hurdle. They still go on though. It doesn't have to be a perfect race or perfect journey. And if you see many, many other hurdles in front of you, it doesn't really matter. You don't fear them as much.
That is very, very insightful, Dr. Connor. Fear actually, when it comes to a point of paralyzing us, then there's nothing we could do. But fear, when channeled right and coached right to be channeled, it actually becomes the propellant. So when people come to you, what are some of the scenarios that brings them to you? Because our audience might benefit from knowing what are the type of scenarios I can go to Dr. Conor for.
Yeah, well, going back to a series of your earlier questions, and you said support system and so on, a lot of the things that uh, people come to me for can be a variety, but uh, usually it's kind of towards work, it's towards productivity, it's towards burnout and work and things like that. But that can often be the top as such, the top edge of the sword. Whereas behind it all, it can be a relationship that is actually making you burnt out. And therefore you go into work and an hour later or something, a boss or someone superior is giving you an email and it's like kicking you off and you don't realize. And that's what happens. And you mentioned all the emotional, the physical, the mental, they're all intertwined together. And what happens is we lack awareness. We lack awareness until we actually come back to our center, to who we really are, our own identity as a person. What motivated me to take this job? Why do I want that promotion? What is really at the center of it? Because the reality is, yes, people come to me and they have to pay money, but you're going to lose a lot more money even if you attain these so-called titles and so on further down the road. And you're eventually going to spend all of that money and more and have lost time and life and energy. So it's about then, you mentioned balance, coming back to the balance and seeing it from that perspective. You can be up on a mountain looking down at yourself all of the time. We often see, people with end of life kind of transitions as such, and they say, oh, when they do come back from the dead or whatever, they say, oh, I was hovering over the room. If you can be hovering over yourself at any time, at all times, and be present, you're definitely going to be more productive and avoid burnout and go forward in a better way in your life and your work.
I absolutely love that, Dr. Conor. The message of being present, hovering over yourself, and connecting to yourself. We live in a world that is so fast-paced, so material, and all the labels are about the externalities. And most people don't even know how to introduce themselves if they don't use their name, their title, and some of those wealth, job, possession related definitions. What advice do you have for people to get beyond all of that, to truly connect with who they are as the human, as the soul inside the body, and get to know themselves?
Well, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, what comes to mind straight away there is that I remember going to hairdressers and barbers and all this, and my hair's crazy. But back then, a lot of people, you'd sit in the chair, they'd go, oh, so are you off from work today? If it's like before 5 or something. And you're kind of going, like, why do you have to identify with me with what I do? Or why, and things like, and I remember thinking to myself back in the rough old days and the days that things weren't going well for me, thinking, well, I'm not going to go back there because you should instead say to me, hey, what's your name? Because that's what we identify by. Or what is it that I love? Where is it that I'm trying to go for? And I think if we have a deeper conversation more immediately with people, we get to the core of that person. If everybody can do that, if we have a more perfect world in that regard, we're not trying to chase titles. We're not trying to chase things that are seen by the populace as being bigger things, being the acceptable social things. These are the things that give you credentials. They're not. These are the things that actually can drag you back if you're not truly being yourself and following your own path.
That is so interesting. And it's also very cultural, right? You and I have talked before this recording, and I am from the East. I have friends, classmates, neighbors, and that entire region. Nobody asks you what you do. If they see you, they invite you home. It doesn't matter how poor they are. They make you a meal. They share what they have, even if you meet people in the bus or the train. By the time the journey is over, you've exchanged lunch boxes and you've scheduled time for families to get together. It is such an immediately personalized culture. And then in the West, it's all about what do you do? Who do you do it for? Where do you live? What car do you drive?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, if somebody asks me a question with regard to, hey, what do you do? They just want, there's a kind of uh, perhaps a clue for me to realize, well, what are they trying to get from me? right? And this is what is in the West, and that's not going to help me. So they don't truly want to know me. So slow it down a little bit, because what I'm saying here is the tortoise and the hare, you know, the hare will get burnt out, and you can ignore it if you wish, but the tortoise will always win the race.
Mhm. That is perfectly put, right? The minute people want to know what we do, you know it's transactional. When they want to know how you are feeling and how you're doing, and how can we collaborate or how can we serve each other, then that becomes a transformational journey. So keeping that in perspective and knowing that that's how you engage, Dr. Connor, what advice would you have for people who are struggling in this material world, juggling multiple things, trying to keep everything up in the air because in every sphere they are being judged for how good they are in that role? And deep inside, they're feeling invisible. They're not feeling seen. They're not feeling heard.
Well, I would reverse, as you're asking that question, I would reverse it as the answer. I would say, well, you've got to deal with not or feeling not being seen and not being heard. That's the first thing. Now, okay, you could say, well, somebody's not listening to me, not somebody's not looking at me, the boss or my superior or somebody in a relationship. Well, then you have to go back to ground zero. Who can control this? What is the one common thing here? It's yourself, and start analyzing your own situational relationships, your conversation, your communication, your past with this person, how you met, how you were hired, why you were hired. Was it that they were actually looking, playing a long game, a sneaky game, looking for something from you because you knew somebody else or something like that? So get back to ground zero, and all the other stuff, then the things that you're juggling, you got to leave the balls down. To do that, you need to take that time out. Now, okay, I'm not talking about, say, on a practical 7-day week that you don't go into work and you suddenly stop and become a monk. I'm not talking about that. You still have to go in 9 to 5, Monday to Friday at least, or whatever it is. But if you have time, you can take it home and you can do X amount of work at home. That's a time where you need to foster a different type of environment around in your home life, in your bedroom, everywhere, so that you can get into yourself. For example, I remember back in the pandemic days, we won't say too much about that, but the term reset was often used by a lot of people. And they said, oh, we could stop, we could listen, we could kind of look at the simple things and be gracious. Great. But then suddenly, when they changed, certainly where I was, where they changed the traffic, the restrictions with regard to your distance and how far you could actually go, suddenly there was traffic on the roads and people went back to the same thing, and then they're stressed again. So it makes no sense. We have to go with the present moment and build from there.
Perfectly said. Before I open this up to our live audience, I would love for you to take a moment and share with our audience how they can best get a hold of you and a nugget of wisdom you would love to leave them with.
Well, firstly, how you can get a hold of me is on LinkedIn best. And I think we are LinkedIn with regard to that ourselves, Doctor. And I'm sure you can put them on the show notes. A nugget of wisdom. I think that comes from people because, I mean, we've spoken a lot about me at this moment, at this stage. So I just welcome the questions and see where it goes from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Connor.
Sure.
So today is the day for all the doctors. Dr. Menon, so glad to see you. And I know you have a question there.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm in the medical field, and obviously burnout is a huge thing for us. And in medicine, we're suddenly now finally recognizing that we're actually kind of the same premier athlete mindset, and we never actually worked on our inner self coaching. That's all taboo because that's considered weakness and vulnerability in a doctor, and no patient wants to hear that their doctor is weak, and that's the mindset that we've been given. So we're driven by something called a maladaptive perfectionism. And I was wondering how our guest speaker here might address that, just maybe one or two nuggets for somebody in a highly functioning profession to kind of take a step back and and not beat ourselves up on the one mistake or two mistakes we make in our day.
Yeah, well, I think, Doctor, I think it's all about, we have this perfectionism thing. It's unattainable. We go for excellence. If we go for excellence, let's just like roll back from perfectionism. If we go for excellence, we look at the competition. We look at what a person has done in order to attain that job promotion, what a person has done in order to get that far. Maybe what a person has done is in a surgery. Wow, they've done 10 surgeries more than me or whatever else. So if we can actually come to a certain point where it is that excellence is, and then realize that by the time I get to that point, be it a month's time, a year's time, 5 years' time, or I'm striving towards that, I'm trying to get more surgeries, I'm trying to improve. Well, guess what? I'm not actually the best that I can be by then. Why? Because I'm a different person, biological, physiologically, everything in 5 years' time, in a year's time. So we wrote back to the language that's being used nowadays with regard to be the best that you can be and all that. But what are you in the first place? You're not the same in a year's time if you've had an experience, a personal experience or a professional experience. So wrote back, leave perfection where it is. This is where the bots are, right? This is where, they're talking about surgeries and all of that and minimal kind of mistakes. Okay, we're human beings. We will have that shake in our hand, perhaps. So we have to envelop that within ourselves and look at excellence and where excellence of the competition is at. Everybody has a failty. Everybody is going to at least burn out at some stage, even though they don't say it or admit it. We can see it if we're honest. People, we often communicate on the subconscious level. So we have to look at exactly where we are, and we are the only person that can lead us forward. So looking at excellence, but from the point of view of that, I'm actually going to change physiologically in the next time that I try to attain that particular goal.
Thank you. So basically, to summarize what you're saying, it's that to look at perfectionism and put that aside and come back to understanding that all of us, it's a it's a it's a dream out there, and we're trying to attain it, and we have to come back to ourselves and accept both the positive and especially the parts of ourselves that we don't really appreciate, to be able to embrace that part as well, and then automatically perfection will come. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, what is perfection? Perfection is nothing insofar as, are we trying to, for generic perfection? As I said, that's where the bots are at. I saw a video there recently where all the bots are all lined up like soldiers and they're all moving the exact same motion. But that's not like we judge that, say, in the Olympic Games through synchronized swimming. Perfect. But we only have a time, a period as an athlete, for example, and then our body changes, or then we get a little bit older, or we get injured, and we can never do the exact same thing. It's the exact same things with our minds. It's the exact same things throughout decades of our profession, no matter what we're doing, say, as medics. And so if we look at somebody like Jurgen Klopp, and I definitely say to people, look this guy up. He's a German coach in soccer. And when he came into Liverpool a few years ago, people thought, oh, we need the perfect coach. We need somebody to bring the culture of the team that was the biggest ever back again. But no, he was totally a curveball, and he was just natural. So be your unique self. Smile, make a mistake, say, oh, I got it wrong. Why? Because that lets people in. They're more vulnerable then. You're building more connections. You're being more thorough. People will forgive you more, even in a cutthroat world like the medical profession. Be yourself and bring that forward rather than trying to hide that and to actually try to be the perfect professional as such.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my conflict to that would be, I live in a very litigious society in the US is where I practice. And I think a lot of doctors are concerned that, if they open themselves up to say, oh, this happened and it was a mistake in my judgment, that's the end of their career. So how do you balance, being vulnerable and having that fear of like losing the one thing that you do that you love and that you're good at?
Well, I think that goes back to, for example, a question we often say to ourselves when we're younger. Should I do a career that I'm good at or something that I love? And it's like, right? So if somebody accused you of that and you had to admit it, that, look, I made a mistake, you can also say, I made a mistake, but guess what? I'm actually studying at something else here that is going to supercharge my efforts in the future. So this mistake is actually a learning moment for me because I'll be better because of it. if somebody then criticizes you, well, you have to ask them, well, what are you doing to improve yourself in the background? I mean,
Right.
if you have a passion for something, if you're good at it, if you can get both things together, certainly then they step into your world and they see you 24/7, that you are actually the real deal.
Okay.
This
Thank
is
you.
such an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Menon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Conor. And ultimately, the message I am taking from you, Dr. Conor, is there is no such thing as perfection, which is a fact. We can only be better than what we were yesterday. So we focus on that and we move towards excellence. And we understand that as we evolve, everything around us is also evolving. So the frame of reference is continuously changing, right?
Yeah, that's excellent to
And
summarize.
yes, and also have some grace for ourselves and everything around us, because nothing was learned and nothing was innovated without making a mistake. Edison made 1,000 light bulbs before he made the real one, right? If he didn't make those thousands, we would never have light bulb today. So were the first 1,000 mistakes, or was that a journey towards getting us a light bulb? And so it's a matter of changing our perspective and changing the culture in which we function to change the perspective. And that is such a poignant message that the Goldilocks community can take into the week. Thank you so much, Dr. Conor. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have this conversation. And I know the community is going to love hearing your message, listening to the conversation. And I look forward to getting you back here and maybe even doing some workshops and events with you so that we can bring lessons like this and training like this to the community. And to the community out there, take the message from Dr. Conor today. Don't focus on being perfect. Connect with yourself and focus on being a better person tomorrow than you were today. And with every step, you can get to where you need to get to, because it's not about being fast. It's not about being the rabbit that hops along fast. It's about taking it slow, taking it systematic, and finishing your race in your way, because the turtle or the tortoise always wins the race.